Welcome to the Ops Experts Club with Aaron, Taryn, and Savannah. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of some of the finer details of multi-million-dollar companies. These ops experts have dealt with operations for scaling companies and well-established businesses with anywhere from small to large teams. If you've ever been deep into the details of a major company, then you know how much it takes, and these conversations are just for you. Welcome to the Ops Experts Club podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another sweet Ops Experts Club. Today we have with us a wonderful guest. Why don't you just introduce yourself? Who are you?
Oh, my name is Gian Lemmi. That's a very fancy first name, so we're just going to go with Gian.
Perfect. Great to hear. And then, of course, we have with us once again, Ben Clatterbuck. Ben, thanks for joining us again. Soon to be joining us is our fearless leader, Aaron, at any point in time here. Gian, it's great to have you. This is our Ops Experts Club. Just a nice little weekly get together. We discuss operations for, the different clients we work for, mainly the online e-commerce, people, entrepreneurs, visionaries, just the different operation needs we tend to work through with people. So it's fun to have you on board, as we have not had a social media type person on here. So do you want to give us a quick start with your main role and for who?
Well, I am the social media coordinator for John Acuff and Acuff Ideas. Yeah, it's been a good journey. I started it early June.
Pretty new then.
Very new.
So let me just say this, Ops Experts, as you're watching, Gian tells everybody that Terren's his favorite. Let's just narc him off. Right? So I just want you to know, I feel like, man, me and Gian had such good time together. I was through the hiring process. We brought him into this role together. We've done so much good stuff. And then Taryn shows up on the scene and Gian's like, yeah, I'm going to rate this L10 meeting a 9 because Taryn's not here. Taryn, you're Gian's favorite, man. And that's fun.
Taryn, you should have fixed this as Taryn showed up on the scene on time.
So obviously we talked about John Acuff. Obviously that's probably part of the intro.
I just said I work for him.
That's great. So Taryn, I don't want to railroad. Let me throw this out there and then I'm going to push it back to you because I just came in like a big splash in a lake. So I just honestly, I just had to jab at Gian because he gives me a hard time publicly in meetings all the time. And I felt like this is my venue. I get to jab at him publicly in a nice open setting. John Acuff is one of our greatest clients. We love him. Love John Acuff. Love the impact he's making on the world. What an inspirational dude, in my own life personally. So I've been in close relationship with John, as far as friendship and weekly meeting for the last 4 years almost. And just so appreciate the guy, appreciate his heart. And then, we've been working with John as a client for the past little over a year, maybe a year and a quarter, and have just loved watching the progress on his team. As he's, 8-time New York Times bestseller, has got podcasts that's reaching up over 1.5 million, right? That's where we're at. Has got social media followings that Gian has a very direct influence on. About that, I'm sure today, but such a big influencer. But one of the best parts I feel about John is his heart. And then John's team that also really fall in suit behind, as goes the leader, so goes the ship, and I feel like Gian has been just an amazing add to John's team. I feel like just cut from the same elk, very driven, very goal-oriented, and just an amazing person as a human. And so I'm excited to have Gian on today. Gian's role is a little bit different than what we normally look at for Ops Experts Club. But the reason why I wanted to bring him on today was I feel like we're branching his role more into an ops role, project management role. He was hired in to do a lot around John's social media and take that load off of John, and off of somebody else that was leaving the company at that time. But I feel like his title doesn't do justice to all the things that Gian does. And especially as we come into a new season for John and some new offerings this next year, I'm excited to see just Gian's project management skills and ops skills, because he's got all of those things in there. And I feel like I've just been waiting for an opportunity, and this is the opportunity to show themselves. So Gian, thanks for being with us today, man.
No, thank you. Thank you for that intro. I need to just take you around everywhere I go.
That's right. Put that in your pocket. I love it.
Yeah. And this isn't just a Gian Flatter Fest, but Aaron, one of the things we love about the different specialists we'll bring on and here with us is more often than not, somebody that was hired and it turns out they got something way more that they hired for, like you might have been a social media coordinator, but it became pretty clear that you got a lot more in there that is taking you above the position you're hired for. That's a lot of what we like to look at and dig into. So give us a little description on what that entails for you in your work and how you got started with that.
And can I
Oh,
add there too? Like, as you start talking about that, will you tell us, because your story is so cool on how you fell into this role too? So, we do so
sure.
much recruiting for so many of our clients, but I've never had a recruiting story like yours, Win. And so I'd love for you just to tell a little bit of that, because I think that entrances you into what you're doing now as well.
Yeah. Well, so I'm originally from Brazil and played tennis all my life. And so I came to America to play Division I college tennis. That's how I made it to the US. And right after I graduated with a kinesiology degree. I just wanted to be a PE teacher and wear shorts and a t-shirt every day. That was the mind behind it. And I coached 10 years. I coached the women's tennis team, Division I, and I just loved it. I still got to wear shorts and a t-shirt every day. They flew me around the world to go recruiting and would pay for all those things. And it was just a great experience. Then I started having a family. I got married. I started having kids, and the traveling just got too much. I was traveling almost 100 nights a year with the team and recruiting. And I have now a 5 and a 3-year-old. And so it was starting to be a little too heavy on the family, the time apart. Still loved my job. But this past year and a half, I started just branching out and seeing what was out there, and start talking to the administration here at college about moving me into an administrative role just so I could be home, still be in touch, a part of the tennis program, but um, be at home, not have to travel so much. So then start talking to them, and they actually, the end of this past spring, they were able to offer me a director of operations for the both tennis programs here at Liberty. And at the same time as they're offering me that job, Ashley, John's assistant, and if you haven't had Ashley on this expert club, you need to have her here because she is legit. But
On the list.
she messaged me because John had come to speak at our university in 20, and I just got to meet him, and so he apparently remembered me and as just a tennis coach. And then Ashley emailed me and said, "Hey, John is in search of a social media coordinator. Do you know anybody who's interested?" So I asked around.
Time out. How did you meet John at that conference though?
I started my own podcast during the pandemic in 2020, and it's nothing like John's podcast. Obviously, I'm just a college tennis coach, but was able to interview some decent people. John Gordon got to meet these people and interview them. And I think my AD thought that my podcast was much bigger than it actually was. And so one afternoon in the summer of 2021, she calls me and says, "Hey, do you think you can get John to come speak at Liberty for the athletics department?" I was like, I guess. I'm not gonna say no. I'll figure it out. I'll find a way. So then I messaged John on social media. He no idea who I was, but I've been following his work all since his first ever book. Um, and he replied, said, "Hey, talk to my speakers bureau and all those things." So I got in touch with them, and then when they started talking about money, I was like, I don't have the credit card. Like, just go talk to the AD. And so when John actually came in October of 21, my AD actually asked me to drive John around, picking him up from hotel, pick him up from, and so I had two 15-minute intervals with John in the car, so I was able to just share with him, the impact that he had in my life. We talked about pickleball and just that. And so I guess he remembered me and, working at college. And so when the social media position opened up, he was like, probably Gian is a good idea to reach out to because he might know somebody. So when Ashley did in the spring of 22 now, I was just blown away, first of all, that he even remembered me. And I asked around and everybody's like, no, 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 no. So then I told my wife, I was like, why don't I sign up for it, to be his social media coordinator? And she was like, you have no training. Like, you're a tennis coach. All you've done in your entire life is, you've just been a tennis coach. And I do like to cook and I do post my recipes on social media, but obviously not to the same extent of John's. quality and quantity of posts. And so I applied, and I actually applied late, so I couldn't even submit my resume. And so I said, "Hey, I'll do it and I'll apply." And Asher was like, "Well, we already already shut off the application, but hey, make sure you email so and so." So I did, and throughout the whole interview process, I was very open. I was like, I am not
So can I just pause?
qualified for this
Can I
job."
just pause this right now? So like we had gotten all these applicants, right? John Acuff's hiring for a social media coordinator. Like that's a like a high volume, like, you know, so the folks doing recruiting, Stephanie and Drew for me, that are handling recruiting, handling setting up the interviews, handling vetting the applicants or whatever, they see Gian's application come in, you know, his resume come in, and I'll never forget, I get this box, you know, and it's Drew, and he goes, "Bro, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? Like, the guy's a tennis coach, you know that, right? Like, what does this have to do with anything that we're doing?" And I'm like, "Listen, he was an applicant from John directly, like, obviously still meet with him." And then after whoever it was that did that initial interview with you, Gian,
Yeah, Drew.
yeah.
Drew.
So
Yeah.
Drew walks me back and he goes, "Bro, that's the dude." Like I've interviewed a bunch of people. I know I gave you some grief about him being a tennis instructor before. That guy's got it. So I think Gian's really downselling. He had a great social media presence. I mean, you sent us like stuff with your tennis. Like what was one of my favorite ones that you show of your reels is the one where like, move your feet, or like you have like five sayings, and it's just like
five sayings of the coaches. Yeah.
But I just think you had the coolest thing I think about Gian, and I don't want to interrupt your story, Gian, because I want you to keep going with it, but the coolest thing that I think Gian's story tells us is Gian was already doing these things without even realizing that he was doing these things. So then when it became like, could Gian do this at a higher level? He was undervaluing the fact that he had already been doing these things, and he had a decent following doing these things. Like he said, like he has good followers. It's not John Acuff followers, but he's got a following. He's got people that like listening to what he says, and he knows what's working because he's already been testing his chops, trying different things, which is what posed him well for this role. Because a lot of the kids that were coming in and interviewing for it, like, yeah, they had gotten taught in university or taught something about this or had played with their own social media at some level, but Gian had been imitating John behind John's back in his own way without even realizing it, which posed him as like, no, this guy's got it. So go ahead, Gian. I just wanted to tell that.
No, and yeah, I think that was one of the things. Was I was probably the only college tennis coach in America that had his own podcast. Well, besides my co-host, and was also a tennis coach. And I actually had written a book about coaching in 2020 when everything was shut down and there was nothing to do. So I wrote a book about that. I started a newsletter. And so I knew from the amateur side of things, you know, the side hustle that John talks about a lot, side of things, how to do all these things. I had done it myself. Even I had completed an Ironman, a half Ironman in the summer of 21. And so I had, I applied John's, teachings to my own life, and I saw the impact that he had. And so I was like, well, it'll be incredible to work with him. And that was the avenue. If they had told me, hey, I need a janitor for John's office, I probably would have applied too. It just didn't matter what the job was. I just wanted to be around John just to learn even more. And so it's just been incredible.
That's a great story.
The entire interview process was, hey, this is a big time job. And I was like, yes, I get it. I am not qualified. I don't know why I keep going on this interview process. And my wife in the back is like, I can't believe they're asking you to interview again. And so, yeah, when I got the email from Aaron with the job offering, I told my wife, I was like, they actually going to hire me. And my wife was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Tell you why she needs to have a little more faith, because I know you say that all the time. Like even in the meetings, like you said, obviously we bring Gian on. He's been doing amazing at the role, has elevated John's. I'm really impressed with the elevation, and you can maybe share a little about that if you want, Gian, on Rob Your Thunder. But I think that every once in a while, Gian's wife will make an appearance in Gian's speech at an L10, and she's like, my wife always asks me, why do they even listen to you? Just tell her she needs to believe. Like Gian's got good ideas. You bring powerful stuff to the table. And I think that's one of the greatest testimonies of who John Acuff is in my mind is John's not looking for polished and refined and somebody that's got a bunch of experience. John's looking for the person with the right heart that's got the can-do attitude of, no, I think I can do that. Why don't you give me a shot at that? And like, that speaks John's language more than you could come with the best resume ever. And then I feel like it really contributes to the power of his team too, because you've got all these people that do a couple of different things. John loves the side hustle, like Gian said, and Gian being a practitioner of side hustle keyed him up perfectly for the role. So kudos to you for that, man.
Yeah. No, my wife is the fuel that keeps me going. That's the And I think she knows it, so she just keeps doubting on purpose.
Well, Gian, my only question is, did your new administrative role require pants, or are you still in shorts?
Well, it does require pants, but I still can wear a polo. It's getting cold now, so I'm wearing some half zips, but I don't
Nice.
mind it. I don't mind it. Yeah.
Okay.
I still get to wear shorts when I go on the court sometimes or
Nice.
exercising. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, what else would be maybe as part of your story, something you learned from your origin, even from back from 2020, taking you from now through that journey of trying to start up your own entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
everything? Something you learned was part of that you could share.
Yeah. I think sometimes we think our identity lies within our craft, and I see that with coaches all the time. Like you see all these coaches that are 85 years old and they're still coaching because they believe they don't know anything else. Like all they've done their whole life is coach, or all I've been an accountant my whole life. That's all I know. And I think I was, due to John's help a little with other, listening to podcasts and reading books, just figuring it out that you can be more than just one thing. And I think sometimes we get so ingrained,
Mhm.
oh, I went to school to be this. Therefore, I'm going to be doing this my entire life. And I was of that mindset until probably 5, 6 years ago. I was just like, oh, I'll just be a tennis coach forever. But the pandemic really put a stop into everything. And I had to reassess all aspects of my life. And I started realizing that it's not that way. You have a lot more gifts than just one. And maybe one is really good and you can just do that for the rest of your life, but it's not necessarily true. And I think that's what I try to, tell a lot of other coaches now too, that I come in contact with is, hey, start, journaling. Just put your thoughts on paper and just see where it goes. Or,
Mhm.
hey, you always say you wanted to do this. Why don't you just try that out?
Mhm.
But I think there's still a lot of self-doubt in the minds of everybody. And that's what a lot of John's work is just trying to eliminate that self-doubt in people so that they can achieve more than they think they can.
Gene, you're not going to do it unless I nudge you and make you. And so at some point in here, like brag a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like to tell us a little bit about like, cause I will say one of the most powerful things about Gian, Taryn, to your point of like, have you learned in your ascension? And I like, tell us the good and the bad, like this has been something that was really good. This is something that was really hard. But I will say what I've really seen in you is your ability to influence your influencer, right? Because John's had this big influence in your life all these years, and then you're stepping into this role that's super intimidating because you're like, what the frick do I know about doing this stuff, But then I've been really impressed. Like it even made the Christmas card this year. Like John was not doing reels, like period, full stop. Like he was not doing, and it was like, and had an aversion. And I feel like you brought him to like a shift in you and Caleb Peavy over at Unmutable, who we've had on the show as well. But maybe you want to speak to that just a little bit, like as far as,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's props to John for being open and always truly practicing what he preaches of learning from anybody and everybody. And I thought at first more of my meetings were going to be John telling me what to do.
Mm.
And right in the beginning, I started figuring it out that it was actually going to be the opposite. He's like, hey, teach me something I've, and I think maybe I was the 11th person that just put him over the top. Or, hey, John, we actually need to do reels, because all of his static photos were great, and even when I was applying for the job, I just went onto social media and just tried to copy it, what the previous social media coordinator was doing. And it was great quality, great. But from my own experience with my own podcast and posting, my pictures did a lot less views and likes and engagements than the reels. And even if it was a 1% scale of what John's did, the volume and all those things. So when I came in, I was like, John, I think we really need to do reels. And he was like, oh, all right. I've, never done this, but I think we'll do this now. Now, since you're saying it, since the tennis coach is saying it, let's just go ahead and do that. And so props to John to listening and always being, I think he always tries to be a yes and instead of a yes but, always trying to add more things to his repertoire, even if sometimes it hurts him because he always wants to keep doing more and more. But he never really puts limitations on us or any of the rest of the team, which is great.
You guys have created quite a few of those reels at this point, right? And not just reels,
Yeah.
but like get it out. Do you have any, like, you don't have to give me an exact number, but like a ballpark number?
Of views on his
Like,
reels?
that are just like, on the Christmas card, I think it was like 900 and something reels like posted this year or something like that.
So we're almost posting 2 a day for about 5-6 months now, which has been a lot of reels.
And a crazy amount of visibility, right? Like people love them.
Yeah.
People are like a lot
Yeah.
more eyeballs too, which has been rad.
Yeah. And then now the thing I'm running into is which kind of reels do better, you know?
Right.
So we do the tweet reel. That one does well all the time. We figured that one out. It always, because that's very shareable and it takes 5 seconds for you to look at and send a message to somebody else. Say, hey, look at this, you know? And we realized the reels that he does recording in his studio office, that it looks polished, doesn't do so well as the one that he does right after he finishes a run, you know? So now I'm making him just take a script with him in his mind as he runs, and then when he finishes, he just says that script, and it looks natural. It looks like, oh, I just came up with a stop, which maybe that's behind the scenes. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that. But there is a plan, you know, there is. And so I'm constantly emailing him scripts and emailing him, hey, this is an idea. Hey, we have a challenge coming up. Make sure that you say, you know, put a tag on the end of that reel, you know, about the challenge or in the new business ventures. And so I'm learning on the job. And I think that was the only thing I was confident in during this entire process was, I think I can figure this out. You know, if you ask me to be a social media coordinator, I'll be a social media coordinator. If you ask me to be a project manager, that was when Aaron said, hey, I think we were going to add this project manager, you know, role into you. And I was like, look, the same way that I was honest and told you I have no idea what a social media coordinator does in my first interview, no idea what a project manager does, you know, but I believe I can do it. I can learn. And so it's been fun. It's been fun.
I'm curious with all of those reels. I mean, with reels, twice a day for 5 to 6 months, has it been difficult coming up with content, or how do you keep that sort of creative idea flowing with so much content being posted?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I was tasked to do was like, he's given speeches, you know? And so what I did was I found all the footage from previous speeches that he's given. And then I manually went in there and cut a 45-minute speech into 20 reels, you know? And so I did have some of, you know, and then every week he's producing a podcast. And so that's an easy 5-6 reels that I know it's coming in every week. And then the ones that he does running, and now we're starting a little bit more of scripted reels that I can give it to him and say, hey, it's the end of the month. I need a Thanksgiving reel. I need a New Year's Eve reel. Those will be great for January 1st reel. But at first it was just mining all the content that he used to have that was never used and just turning it into reels. But even then I was like, I don't even know how to do this. Like, I don't even know how to add captions to a reel, you know? So then I'm just using the Instagram system to add captions, and they spell John with an H all the time. And John sometimes mumbles, and so it doesn't recognize it. So then I'm having to edit all the captions. It's taking me 20 minutes per reel to work on this. Then we started using a few different softwares that makes it much easier, and I can edit and post it much, much faster. So just learning as we go.
Yeah.
We got 3 minutes left. So I'd say, Gian, I'd really love to lean into, obviously you've been giving us all the gold of like what you do and like overcoming adversity and figuring things out. Maybe some of the toughest things that you've had to work through, not necessarily with John, but maybe just in life, however you want to share, wherever you want to go with this. But like, I feel like you shared with us some really good wins. Like share with us like some of the struggle and figuring stuff out.
Twitter. I just can't figure it out. Twitter. Really can't figure it out. No, I think one of my favorite quotes is, I think there's only 3 seasons in life. You're either in the storm, you either just got out of a storm, or you better buy an umbrella. And I think right now, I feel like I'm about to buy an umbrella because life has been great for 2 years straight, you know? And so I've been talking to my wife. I'm like, life, you know, I've only been in this earth 33 years, but I figured it out that there is these cycles, you know, even sometimes it's a few days that are really bad and then a few days that are really great, or it's a few years that are really good and a few years that you just go through this funk. But I feel like starting to develop some systems within the home, within the work, with friends and those things, so that we can weather those storms when they come, and the effect on you is not so bad.
Love that. I love that. Such a great story. Gian,
Oh,
thank you. Appreciate you
No,
just
thank you.
being willing to share and being willing to let us be a part of your journey. And I know Tara and I can both speak to this. We do all tend, and Ben works behind the scenes. So you probably don't know that, but it works behind the scenes on Acuff stuff too. So we're all kind of influenced by John indirectly, but I think just super encouraged to hear your story. And I think it's really good for a lot of our people to hear of, hey, who you are now isn't necessarily who you're going to be tomorrow. Always be willing to stretch your mind. And I loved what you said. Like, if he was hiring for a janitor, I probably would have taken that job. Like, as far as figure out the people you want proximity with and lean into that and be willing to try things that maybe you might doubt yourself or your wife might doubt your abilities to do.
Yep.
And lean into it and realize, no, you bring strong skills to the table. And Gian, I just want to commend you, man. You've got strong skills. I'm excited for project management. I'm excited for some of the big things John's, about ready to release. So thank you so much for joining us today, man. And we appreciate you.
No, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Awesome. All righty, guys. We'll see you next week on Ops Experts Club.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ops Experts Club podcast. New episodes available every week on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're curious about how some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship have scaled their businesses to the next level, check out some of our best content on this topic by going to foundationsthatscale.com. You can find the link in our bio and do your part to improve as an ops expert.